Yeah, we're live, 7:17. A little bit late. Just trying to get stuff done today. I put up another video today. It's actually just a segment of the live feed on the discussion that we did on the big block Chevy stuff on the Gen 6 454, where we ran carb versus fuel injection, and then we ran nitrous and we ran a camshaft on it. The reason that I did that is because I get a lot of comments on these live feed videos. I think people are having a hard time really differentiating what kind of video is what kind of video, even though it says it's in the live feed playlist. But they don't want to watch a video for an hour, and I understand that. I don't have an hour to sit and watch stuff, although sometimes I go down the rabbit hole and have to do that anyway, and I end up doing that anyway. But they want it to be more like the 10 to 12 minute kind of videos that we put up. They're what I would call the more normal kind of YouTube style videos. And I try to explain to them, hey, look, this is a similar thing, in that we're covering, you know, some topic of discussion that I choose for during the day. Like today, we're going to take a look at easy EFI, the 4-hole throttle body stuff. And then, but the rest of it is, you know, the time is set aside so we can do question and answer period. So guys can come here that have questions about testing that they're doing, or about combinations that they'd like to run. They'd like to run by me. We got a lot of good guys here that are sharp guys that maybe have run stuff that I haven't run, that they're testing out things. So it's a good place to come and get answers. So that's really what the live feed is all about. And the other videos are just, you really have no interaction. And quite honestly, a lot of guys want to come and have interaction because we want to see the tests and we want to see the data. But then always, if you're like me and most of the people here, you have questions about that. So if there's a test, you're like, okay, but I wish I was there during the test so I could ask questions about it, or steer the test so that it would give me the data that I want for my particular combination, you know, those kinds of things. But if you can come here and ask questions about, hey, what headers did you use? What air fuel was it? You know, what kind of timing did you run? All of those things. And that's kind of why the live feed is set up like the live feed is. And I think it's a good thing. I like interacting with people and I like answering questions. You know, I think it's the best way to actually reach people, and just talking at them in a video is not the same thing as talking with them on the live feed. I think that's kind of important. But I'm going to go ahead and we'll kind of run through this. This was a small block Ford, and we ran an easy EFI, mostly because I hadn't run one of these 4-hole throttle body setups before. So we wanted to try it. We obviously run lots of carbureted stuff. In fact, that really is our easy button, is just grab a carburetor out of the shelf, put a distributor in it, put headers on it, you know, hook it up. It's really easy. We can get the motor up and running in like a half hour, 40 minutes or whatever. That's all very, very fast. But we wanted to kind of see what happened when we ran one of these EFI setups. Can we tune it and get it to work like we can with, you know, on these setups? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scroll this back a little bit so this is not zoomed in. So kind of hold that right there so we can kind of see. And then we'll show. We're going to talk about some dyno results here. I have the dyno results on this too. Although I don't have it, I couldn't find. I know that there's a comparison of this easy EFI versus the 650 carburetor that we ran on it. I distinctly remember that because I remember people talking about, well, the 4-hole throttle body flows a lot more, so I can make a lot more power. Yeah, I can. If we were anywhere near where that became an issue, where the airflow of the throttle blades, where we were utilizing all that, but on a mild 302, you know, I think that this was a 30 over kind of 302, a fairly mild one. It was sub 400 horsepower, so it was not taking advantage of everything that even a 650 Holley carburetor had to offer, let alone something that flows maybe 1,000 CFM or something. So that really wasn't an issue, but it is a difference, and so people like to point that out. Our combination here this was a Blueprint motor or a Marshall motor, and it was a rebuilt 302. This one had a small camshaft in it. In fact, we'll switch over to our dyno results here. We can kind of take a look at the dyno results. I don't know if I can zoom in to this or not. Let's see what we can do here. There we go. Yeah, we can. So we have the camshaft. The thing I want to look at were the cam specs. So this had Blueprint as cast 190 aluminum heads, certainly better than any sort of factory E7TE head. Oh, it was 40 over. Cast internals had valve reliefs, But the camshaft was a 543, 554 lift, a 218, 226 duration, and 112-degree lobe separation angle. So a step down, if you will, from the Extreme Energy 274 camshaft that I like to run on a lot of stuff. It had a dual plane eliminator intake manifold. It had the, like, yeah, we had run this Holley 650 on 1 3/4 headers, MSD distributor, and then we ran the Easy EFI. And then Ish did all the tuning on this. I'm sure that I could have done, dialed in the air fuel and timing stuff with that, because it's very, very similar. The Easy EFI was similar to other fast stuff that I've done before, but it's good to have a good guy sitting there. Really, for me, more to make sure that we get it all hooked up and that it's doing the thing that it's supposed to be doing. If you can go, yes, I want less timing, or yes, I want more timing, or want timing here or not there or whatever, all of that's fairly easy, as long as it's doing what it's supposed to do, and as long as we have the base timing set and the thing is responding the way that it's supposed to. All that's very, very easy. And this thing was fairly easy to tune to get us in the airfield that we wanted. And we could do with this thing, and we can go ahead and we'll just kind of release it. You can see this thing made like 385 horsepower and 370 something foot-pounds of torque. So it did fairly well. This is the only power curve that we have here, and that will keep going. We'll get rid of our description here. Or maybe I won't. Maybe it was there for the whole time. But the 4-hole throttle body worked, let's say, as good as a carburetor, and maybe a little bit better. And a little bit better in terms of we could make the air fuel through the whole RPM range what we wanted it to be. So whatever I decided that was the optimum amount. And the nice thing about having a dyno and having a motor on the dyno is they will tell you what it likes. If you run it at 11.5 and then go to 12 and it makes more power, like, okay, well, let's keep going in that direction. Let's go to 12.2 or 12.3 or 12.5. Let's keep going until it says, you know what? I'm indifferent now. Going from 12.5 to 12.8, it didn't do anything. You might try a little shot at 13.0 or whatever. And it's like, yeah, no, we're there. That's kind of where I want to be. And that might be telling you, and a good video to watch is the comparison that I did with fuel injection, where we did batch fire versus sequential versus individual cylinder tuning versus a carburetor. And what you might be seeing there is not that you can't improve the power output by optimizing the air fuel in every cylinder, but we're not able to do that with a 4-hole throttle body any more than we're able to do that with a carburetor, because it's just dumping all the fuel into both sides. Now we can put more or less fuel in globally at different RPM ranges, which gets harder to do with the carburetor. So this is one thing that this has. It also, because of where we're dumping the fuel in, where we're spraying the fuel in, hopefully atomizing it, where we're putting the fuel in on top of the carburetor, beneficial for charge temperature like a carburetor. So we get charge cooling, which is helpful for power. But if we can, what we see oftentimes with a carburetor when we're running this through the RPM range, whether it's a dual plane or a single plane, because you just have reverse problems kind of. So it might be lean and they get rich and then get lean, or it might be lean and they get rich, or it might be rich and then get lean. And you don't want it to do that. And if you do a jet change, it just kind of elevates all of that in one direction or the other, which depending on which way you want to go. It's hard to go, okay, I want to take away half an air fuel point at 3,500. I want to add an air fuel point at 3,000. I want to take away a full air fuel point at 4,500, but then I want to, put fuel back in at 6,000 or whatever. You can do all of that with fuel injection. So this was nice to be able to do that. And it actually worked fairly well. I mean, in terms of that, we were able to do that. One of the things you might notice for this thing out past 6,000 RPM, 6,100 RPM, in fact, we had a spring problem. I mean, this was on that particular instance, that's an actual valve float issue. And that's an easy way to recognize that on a dyno. And if we revved it higher, it'd be even more evident, because what you get is what I call like a geometric change in the curve. Like this thing should go up and have a nice smooth, like the torque curve should have a nice smooth arc to it. It should never do that unless you run into some sort of mechanical problem. In this case, it's valve float. So you run into valve float, everything's going nice, and then woo, and then it takes a big drop, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a problem. And you can hear it too. If you've been doing enough dyno testing, you're like, oh yeah, that's unhappy. If you have an air hat on it, or an air turbine where you're measuring the airflow you will also see it there because it gets unhappy. Like, oh, it should continue to rise in airflow. The airflow should go up, continue to go up, even if you're past the horsepower peak. The airflow goes up with RPM. If it doesn't keep doing that, we have kind of what we have there. But we'll take a look at our combination again. Like I said, blueprint heads, the MSD distributor. It had the small cam, 218, 224 cam, that fast like throttle body deal on there. I was just showing these are all photos from a story that I did on how to hook it up, and so we were setting the distributor. We had coolant temp sensors and your normal kind of sensors. You have a TPS on it and temperature sensors and stuff. I think it had four injectors on this one, because they have others that have more of them, but we don't have that much. We weren't trying to supply that much power. This thing also had rockers on it, which is normal for us when we're running these small block Fords, but it was a good little motor, and it did well. We eventually would put springs in this motor so that it would rev higher, but for what we were trying to show in this easy EFI, it actually was a pretty good test, and it, like I said, it worked out. I don't remember. We may have tried running something like this also as a blow through. So I'm looking for that data and those photos and stuff to see if I can come across that. 'Cause I thought that we did that, and not surprisingly, if you can control the fuel and you can control the timing and you can blow boost in there, obviously good things happen, as long as it will cooperate. Because we have in the past, not particularly that I remember with this easy EFI deal, because it seemed to work out pretty well. And this would also run closed loop. But other systems, I can remember Brule and those guys having trouble with them at Westech, with them not like, you'd make a run and then make no changes and then make another run and it would be completely wrong and it would be off. And I'm like, well, what just happened? He's like, I don't know. We didn't change anything. I said, well, it changed something. It changed itself or whatever, because it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And you don't normally see that with a carburetor unless they're like, you break something mechanically and you've broken a spring or a rocker or whatever, or broke something in the carburetor, which would be very, very rare. And so after seeing that a few times, I'm like, I'm not really going to be bothering with these things very much. If they can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again without making any changes, if it's not exactly the same over and over again, I can't test with that, because you have to be able to be repeatable before you make your whatever kind of changes, like the airfill and the timing and the power curve should be the same every run if you don't make any changes. And then when we do make a change, like a rocker or push rod length or intake manifold or whatever we're changing that we're trying to test, that has to be the thing that changes it. It can't be something arbitrary with the fuel injection system just deciding, hey, look, I'm going to do something different this time. And then that throws off all of your data. And obviously that's not a good thing. We'll go ahead and put that up there again. We'll see how you guys are doing. Easy EFI is so easy. That's right. Knowledge, Danny, what's going on? Dino. Greetings, everyone. Big Bang, small block Ford. It'll break the internet. Yep. Small block Ford, Big Bang. I think the block would break before the internet. Yeah, I probably think so too. When these blocks break, though, they don't, the ones that I've seen that are broken, they don't break. They're actually still running. It just splits up. And then what you do is lose oil pressure normally. That's why I think a lot of us would like to see exactly where it breaks under the right conditions. Been a while, but I'm here again. What's going on, Rob? Yeah, Aaron, I agree. I should do one on a small block Ford, and I should also do one on a 462 valve. Rob, you're here first 4 minutes. Nice. Is it really hard to do a custom tune on Gen 1 Coyote? Do you have any experience on stock PCMs? No, I don't. I'm not a tuner. I had to bring somebody in when I ran my Gen 1 Coyote. I brought in the guy that used to work for Jim Bell over at Kenny Bell, and he came in and did the tuning on the factory ECU because that's all we had to run back then. This is back in 2010 or 2011. That's all we had to run the Coyote. They got me a whole like system, the factory deal with the drive-by-wire pedal and all that. And then he was able to come in and tune it because we ran a bunch of tests on it. We ran nitrous on it and headers and different intake manifolds and ported heads and cams and a kettlebell blower, obviously, and a turbo and all kinds of stuff. And so, but it takes a long time to do tuning like that. Small block Ford was about all I would run until the LS. It's a useful torque plane. Never worked on race cars. Never work on race cars when you're tired. Yeah, it seemed like when I was World Challenge racing and when I was running US Touring Car, that seemed like the only time that we were working on them. We were always working on them like day in and day out and being tired. I don't know about rear mount turbos, but it sure left a lot of room for any repairs. It's easier to get to. Boost does make good things happen. It really does. Do you know if the oilless turbos are ceramic bearing? You see gremlins? Standalone ultimate TPI won't turn over now. Second vehicle went down for the same issue. First time was a carb swap. CCM or oil pressure switch thing. Sometimes the oil pressure switch, if it doesn't see oil pressure, it won't turn on a fuel pump. So is it cranking over but not starting? That is a thing. We found that out on one of the Ford trucks when I was World Challenge racing with Hal Bear. Rewiring as if it was sitting on the floor and not in a car. Not sure the construction to do under where the grease goes. I haven't tried one of the oilless turbos. Ordered a 750 Demon last night after the live. Will not regret it. Yeah, no, that'll be good. That'll be good for your combo. Ralph, 6053 and a couple transmissions and 14 volt rear ends are incoming. Oh, good. SRC. What is SRC, Jet? I saw a video explaining that some early TBI units like this only fed the map sensor from one side of the divider, and later ones forked out to see both sides, which improved things. Makes a good story. How do the return lines get oil back to the turbo pan on rear mount turbos? They normally drain them into pumps. I mean, they have pumps that circulate it back up. So sometimes they'll drain back into a collection thing, and then the pump is attached to that, and then they'll circulate it and run the line back up, and then they go into a valve cover or somewhere else. You need a major pole shift to get snow where I live. Turbo drains into a small tank, then scavenge pump. Are the comp cam and drift cams good? The dyno they have shows the torque going up and down. Not used to seeing this. I don't know. I haven't ever seen a dyno test of the drift cams. What about ceramic versus follow or sealed? I haven't tested any of those comp turbos. Well, I have tested comp turbos, but I've not tested the first oilless one that we tried. This was way back at the beginning that they tried to do it and were unsuccessful and it broke. But now I guess they've got it working. Then, oh, no prep racing channel. Okay. Easy EFI. I wonder if I still have that kit somewhere. I don't think it has enough injector in it to support a lot of power like we wanted to do boost. But if we put, how how big of injector will we have to put in there? I don't know how much it'll feed. Speed times 16. Yeah, so if we put, we could put 4 1500s or something in there. That would work. I'm going to just start over and rewire everything, because both times the cars were running before, I was trying to integrate everything, but I'm ditching that idea and starting over. I don't need a dash. Comes with gauges and touch screen anyway. Okay. Yeah, get it running, and then once it's working, then add the other stuff. You know how they do it. This is how we do it. Do these modern TBI units use low impedance injectors like the MPFIs? This one had high impedance injectors in it, I think. I think that's just because of the drivers that they use in the computers. Is there a big difference in types of metals different companies make their cams from? There's a big difference between a roller cam and a flat tappet cam. That material is quite a bit different. Ralph, what is your question? What's the difference between Easy EFI, Sniper EFI, and Ace's Whole Shot? I don't know. I don't know about those other ones. This is the only one that I've ever run. Some of the differences you might see between these things are what size injector that they use and where they position the injector relative to the throttle plate. Some are above, some are below, how they're integrating the fuel stream, all of that stuff. 414 stroker, 12.4 to 1, LS3 heads, pack springs, BTR 388 twin turbo cam. Are you asking about running turbos on there, or what it's going to make NA? 414. Are they stock LS3 heads? Yeah, Troy, I need to know what heads they are. Ralph, you gotta use your words. You gotta ask your question. I don't understand what your question is. Recently, Daniel Powell explained cams and materials. Yeah, there are different materials that they use for cams. One of the interesting things that people don't really know about are UGLs, or unground lobes, and then how that affects the hardening of the camshafts, specifically the depth of the hardness. And that's an issue with a lot of manufacturers. Where the ECU is located. Okay, yep, that's another thing. Is the ECU like zip tied to the exhaust? That would be a problem. I have an M112 second gen Lightning supercharger. Does anyone know any companies that sell kits to easily mount it on a Vortec 350? You're not going to have a kit that does that. Have the original swirl heads, but we'll go on aftermarket head. You're going to have to make that yourself, because you're going to have to make a. Somebody probably has I know for small block Chevys, there are blower manifolds for that. Not specifically for the 112, but that would just mean that you would need to make an adapter plate. But I don't know about with a Vortec bolt pattern. Oh, Troy, you have stock LS3 heads? It's interesting that you're doing that with all of that. With those heads, mid 600 maybe. Today, if you would, reflections of mind changing on Richard's worked on investment. I have no idea what you're saying there, man. I don't know what you're asking. Sniper and Phytech has the ECU mounted on the side of the throttle body. Aces mounted wherever you want. I would think you'd want the ECU mounted not in the engine compartment. I think you'd want that mounted inside the car where it's not as hot. Non-roller versus roller with similar upgrades. Are you talking about roller cams? Nathan, we've done a lot of Sniper EFI setups. We've had a lot of people asking about the Aces whole shot setups. I need to just buy one and test it and see if it's comparable. Price point is much lower than a Holly. Kind of drive for the distributor, oil pump. Yeah, different gears. Has someone's YouTube been compromised? I don't know about that. Roller versus non-roller engines. Like on a small block Ford? Yeah, Ralph gets one more opportunity, then Ralph's gone. There's no poll for today, Nathan. Aces offers a lot for the money, but how reliable are they? They are on point with customer service, which makes it attractive. That's important. If you have issues and you can get them solved, then that's important because guys want that. Now, Edward, we don't have a poll for today. I can't do that. I could ask a question. I guess I could post it as a comment, and you guys could let me know how you think. But there won't be any yeses and nos or numbers involved in it. Had a coworker recently buy an Aces for 318. He tried to use a Magnum distributor with it for spark control, but couldn't figure out the 5-volt signal for the Hall effect. Had to buy their distributor O2 was bad also. Can you use a Lubbock truck in an LS3? It's going in a truck, so it fits. There you go. I neither won nor lost the 50% mark on the poll. Was it a specific barber poll too? Today we need to be wary of flat tappets due to the metallurgy to prevent the wiping of the cam. Did you like the Easy EFI? Yeah, it seemed to work good when we tested it. I don't remember how long ago this was. What was the date on this? When was this? That was 2017. So that was what's that? 8 years ago now. Yes, a 73 Ford 302 compared to a 90s Ford 302. So what specifically is your question? Are you asking which one of those works better? I myself would way rather have a hydraulic roller motor. If I was building a 302, I would definitely use a late model hydraulic roller block. I like those better. The one thing I don't like about them is a 5-liter block. I mean, you can do the block, and then if you put the right crank and stuff in it, you can do it as a 28 or as a neutral. But I don't like the ones that are, I mean, all of the 5-liter stuff is 50-ounce balance, and I don't really like that. I'd rather have it be 28, more like the earlier stuff. But I would rather do a hydraulic roller block. I know that the cams are more money, but you'll never have a hydraulic roller camshaft go out because it wore out like flat tappet stuff can. Would you suggest using Easy over Holly, Sniper, or Terminator? No, I wouldn't suggest any of those over any of those because that's the only experience that I have. I haven't tried any of those other ones and haven't run them hundreds and hundreds of times like I have with the Holly HP and the regular port injection stuff. What would I need to swap the intake off an SN95 to fit the truck motor that has the automatic with TPS? Is as simple as a plug and play. And would it be worth it? I don't. Do you? Let's start at the beginning, Dylan. Do you have a 302? And what are you putting it in? And what intake does it have now? And then what intake are you wanting to put on it? I heard you say not enough injector. Was it limited on injector size and availability? On this, since there were only 4 injectors, I don't remember how big they were. But I was just thinking if we put a turbo or a blower or something on this, I think that Easy EFI has ones that will support more power, but this wasn't it. This was just a simple naturally aspirated one. And I don't think it had, I think that this thing had a 1-bar map sensor, which is easily solved. Modern parts quality changes that belief. Does it? We're talking about my belief. My belief, it doesn't change. Well, that belief didn't change about rollers and flat tappet stuff. In fact, if anything, it's gotten worse with flat tappet stuff. You could use a Chevy style 302 cross ram intake and have an easy on the left and a fast on the right. Going to build an LS to put in a 78 Trans Am. Okay, I like that. Hoping for 600 wheel horsepower. It's race. It's Friday, Saturday, and drive to church on Sunday. Going to be a slow spending thing. How would you build that? I don't want boost. I wouldn't do 600 wheel horsepower without boost. I mean, the only other way you're going to get there is with, you're going to have to build a big motor. You're going to have to build a big stroker to get there. And it's not going to be very drivable. It would be a Sunday driver with a 5.3 and a simple turbo and a mild cam, like a low buck truck camshaft. They could just drive it every day. And that's what I would build if I was wanting that. I would much rather have that than a 408 or a something bigger than a 408, 416 or 427 or whatever that you would need to make 600 wheel horsepower, because you're talking about 700 flywheel. So to get that, that's going to be a really big camshaft and some other kind of other than factory intake manifold and stuff. And it's going to be fun. You know, it'll make a lot of power. Like if you look at the 454 that Brian Tooley did that I have up on the channel, that was a 454 stroker. It was a sleeved LS7 block. He had 245 heads on it and a pretty good sized camshaft. He had it running. He drove it around a lot in his Corvette. It was 12.5 to 1, but it had enough camshaft in it that it ran on pump gas. He did a really nice job on it, but he did a lot of really kind of specialized things on it. But it did made 702 or something at the flywheels, which would be about 600 wheel horsepower, certainly in a manual trans car. And so, but that's not the kind of motor that I would want in a vehicle. I would much rather have something that makes 600 wheel horsepower in a 5.3 or a 6.0 with a small cam that you drive around. It says an F-150 intake, and I want to swap to an SM95 intake, and it's going back in an F-150. The only thing I don't know about are the plugs and the hookup for the TPS on the F-150 intake manifold, because isn't that going to have a dual throttle body? So I don't know what the TPS is like on that. And I don't know, the injector hookups should be the same. The coolant temp, all that stuff, I think should be the same. You might have to extend wires depending on where they're located. But I don't know about the TPS on that. I think that the distributor should be the same. The Terminator X throttle bodies have 400 or 800 pound injectors. Okay. Yeah, 8 injectors for the bigger ones. Yeah, that's the one that I was thinking about. I think we ran one of those on something. It might have been one of the editors guys' car or motors. And so I think we did a blow through on that had more injectors in it. I can say at my work, we had a test motor with a Holley TBI that ran for years on a 355, very consistent for testing. 8-barrel TBI EFI. Saw an article about 7.3 Godzilla cams getting wiped out due to factory defects, but someone feel free to fact check me on that. I don't know what the reasoning is behind that. I can ask. I'm going to try to get Brian Wolf on and do an interview with Brian. And he's already said that he wanted to. In fact, I was going to fly back there and do something with him and Evan Smith. And so he's already said that he wants to do it. So that would be a good time to ask him stuff like that, because he just did the 1,000 horsepower, near 1,000 horsepower Godzilla deal. Any reason that turbos can't be run through a full exhaust with mufflers and cats? No, you can. I mean, the factory does turbo stuff all the time like that. But just because you run it through mufflers and cats doesn't mean that it's emissions legal. That's a whole different thing. I will say, after tuning with the Holley Terminator and Dominator, the Sniper EFI is extremely user-friendly. If someone has zero knowledge on how to properly tune it, they could still do a complete setup. Yeah, the handheld stuff really was pretty easy to go through that. Richard, I got orders earlier from my wife for me to make lists of parts I need and get the truck done so we can go racing this year. That's perfect, man. That's the kind of meaningful communication that you should have with your spouse. Definitely want to go boost or an LS7 for 600 at the wheels. I have a I just have a bad feeling. So we're done. We're done there. Sliding a square E object over rounded edge compared to much smoother edge and a wheel equals flat tablet versus roller. Would 36-pound Super Coupe injectors be too much for a roller HO, heavily ported GT40 heads, port match? No, I ran 36s in my Mustang for a really long time, along with a 36-pound Pro M meter, and it worked fine. I mean, think about running. We're running, like, I run 1,500 cc injectors on a 4.8, so it's fine as long as you can tune it. It works good. And those particular injectors I've used a lot. Keeps it emissions legal and street legal. Put a tune in it. Good computer. Scott Tomlinson, it doesn't do that. It doesn't make it emissions legal. You can't add a turbo to a car, even though you run cats in it, and have it be emissions legal. That's not what happens. I'd love to convince him to do a big block in the TA, but his father-in-law always wanted an LS. Maybe I can convince him to be more realistic. Yeah, a lot of times the number that they want is, you got to ask them about all the things that they want. Okay, we've established a number. Now, what happens if to make that number, like it'd be easy if he wanted to build, and then this just becomes more expensive. So if you build like we did with the tall deck block, if you build a 495-inch motor, 7 or 600 at the tire is really easy, and you get lots of torque, and you can put together a fairly mild combination because it's big. It's almost 500 inches. Then it's really easy to do. You just put some good LS7 heads on it, and not even a very big camshaft, a decent intake manifold on there. Put a fast manifold on there, an LS7 fast or an MSD, and that will work fine. But it's not cheap though. Depends if you want to be able to tune it. Too big for a stock ECU. A 36-pound injector is not too big for an E4. Turbo LS with full exhaust has been done. I'm not running cats, but full exhaust with mufflers. Yeah, that's running it through an exhaust is just connecting the pipe. That's not hard at all. You can even run a turbo after the cat, like the 2.2 carb turbo Mustang and Futura did that. The turbo was after the cat? Richard, how much power do you think a Boss 260 will make on pump gas with a flat tappet cam? I don't know what a Boss 260 is. What would be the catch with emissions? Any way to sneak it? All they do is plug into the exhaust and OBD2. That's not what they do. Whether or not it would pass, like have the emissions level, that's easy to do. Everybody could do that. I mean, when I had my Mustang, I had aluminum heads and a camshaft and an intake manifold and a Vortex supercharger and an aftermarket meter and bigger injectors, and it would easily pass emissions as long as the cats were there. But that's not the legality part of it. The legality is what they'll allow you to do. There's nothing to do with the emissions output. It's the things that they will technically allow you to do. And putting a turbo on a car is not allowed because it changes the emissions. If you want to do that, whoever made the turbo kit has to send it through a certification process, which is very, very time consuming and expensive, before it would be given the okay. Racer D, again, I don't know what engine you're talking about. I don't have any idea what a 260 Boss is. Well, when is your next trip to West Tech? I don't know yet. Yeah, Michael, that is true. Especially if you had the old pellet style cats where stuff would come out of them. The 400 currently in it, rusted solid is something north of 400 cubic inches. Reports on the build are hazy. I've seen well-made home hub dynos made in Australia. Have you ever done back-to-back tests comparing one hole to 4 spray hole injectors? You mean just the openings in the disc? But otherwise the injectors are supposed to spray the same amount? Like the rating is the same at pressure? And would the pattern then be different? Will we have one that's like a pintle, like a straight stream, and one has a pattern? When I've done injector tests of different spray patterns at wide open throttle, there really wasn't a difference. But that's not universal. That's just the ones that I tested. LSX 454 crate motor has a big cam, big and LS motor, but isn't enough for 600 wheel horsepower without more work. Yeah, talk to the guys at Nelson. They have some crate motors you can get. Trying to get rid of a bunch of Ford ones. What, Andrew, what Ford parts are you getting rid of? All right, Eric, we'll see you, man. I like those valve covers with the tall bolt bosses. Guess you need longer bolts, but whatever. Yeah, I don't even know if those are available anymore. Those were Comp ones. And I think before that, I think Comp bought them from Hartman, and those were composite ones, and the bolts go all the way through, and that's a reinforced shoulder, so those bolts were long, but they do go all the way down. We used them a lot for stuff on the dyno, and so we ran a lot of them because they're easy to put on. I don't know about running those in the vehicle though. Boss 260 is a 5.4 Australian Ford Falcon 380 quad camera. Okay. Did they have a Boss 290 also? Because I thought that those were that's what the intake that I tried. You know what a Boss 302 is? Yep. A 260 with my CHI 185 heads. How did the 185 heads fit on the 260 bore? Or did you do a really, really short stroke crank with enough bore to use those heads? I'm kind of curious about that. I mean, I know you know how to make power. There's no question about that, especially with those heads. One thing about Northern Michigan, they don't check emissions. Okay. I got a new distributor for my 93 car. I did declare it was for a Vega and not a street car. They wouldn't even sell it to me. Yeah, it can become problematic. Ford had 260s in the early. Yeah, they had 221s also. And that's what I was wondering. That's why I didn't recognize the Boss thing. I thought it was just a name that Dave had given something, so I wanted him to elaborate on it. Boss 260, Boss 290, Boss 320, just 340, 380, or 429 horsepower. 5.4 quad cams. Yeah, Dean, he's talking about something that he did. Richard, getting high flow cats that don't upset the rear O2 sensors is where the trouble starts. Most reputable tuners won't delete rear O2s. Yeah, it's not necessary to do that. I mean, we can make lots of power and still have cats functioning and all that. Currently building a Ford 347 stroker and just wanted to thank you for the help with the videos. Happy to help, Trevor. Short blocks coming together, leaning towards AFR 195s, the Comp XFI 236 cam. I have videos up on that kind of thing, and you can see it makes good power. Just now you're going to tune it kind of with the whatever intake manifold you choose. I do all my street racing in Mexico. There you go. 312Y block and 57 T-Bird. Yeah, AFRs were always regarded as about the best 5-liter Ford head. Yeah, they sold a lot of those back in the day. I still have the NIB Hartman Comp polymer valve covers. Do you have the... I think that these guys, they probably threw it away, had some of the Hartman box upper intake manifolds too. I think that they even had one... for the factory HO lower. Just... I don't know why you would do that. Injector spray timing. I've seen videos of it affecting power and spray angle, but not so much on pattern. I haven't seen many people talk about it outside the OEMs. That's because what they're doing with that is not really for power. What they're doing with injector timing is usually for emissions and drivability stuff, primarily for emissions. But where it really helps in terms of power is injector timing is a big thing for guys that are doing direct injected motors like the LT stuff, probably for the Coyote too, but less so. We've played with injector timing on LS motors, and I didn't really see any power. Cranks are in bags, freshly machined. Heads and blocks are all cores. All good stuff from running teardowns. Okay. I sized the valves down to 206 and 156. Just a small relief on the top of the bore. I took a 302 block and sleeved the bores down to 382 and a 2800 stroke. Okay. The 382 is not, that's still fairly reasonable. That should be a good combination. Why did you build that, Dave? Were you guys doing this for a particular limited race series or a Bonneville thing or something? Well, 1.72 is a pretty high specific output. That thing, it must be spinning pretty high. What intake manifold does it have on it? And how big is the big roller cam? Brutuel has a car with a Hartman box and a stock lower. Yeah, they had one there. It's sat up there collecting dust for, it had to be more than 20 years. Injector timing of big cams helps with idle and drivability. Richard, on my setup, trying to start my car today, asks my ethanol percentage. Do I put 10% or leave it at 0? Why does it care what your ethanol percentage is? Is it determining what kind of injector shot it's going to give you? Just try it one way and then try it another if it doesn't start. We did have the Performance Products tunable runner intake upper. What was that? I don't remember seeing that. I don't remember seeing one that had interchangeable runners in. I did one of those long. In fact, the first adjustable intake manifold I did was a 5-liter based one. Way back, I remember bringing it and covering it, and it was all top secret. I brought it to, because we made it. It was made out of aluminum. I remember bringing it to SEMA and walking around with it, and everyone's asking what it is. I said, "You can't see this. This is top secret." Like it was top secret, like it was something new that nobody had ever seen before. They're like, you know that's not new, right? No, it's brand new. I'm the only one that's ever thought of this. Because nobody knows what I know. Yeah, they do. They really do. Here, we'll change our view here. Big power. So here's how you know that this is another something that the dyno can tell us. This is how you know that it's not a really wild combination, because the peak horsepower is really not much over the peak torque. So if we're making 383 or 4 horsepower and 374 foot-pounds, those are pretty close. You want to make 374 foot-pounds and like 570 horsepower, then you're doing something. Then you have a performance combination. You know. So make sure to check out performance.com for deals on LS. Performance. Jimmy and I are going to be testing turbos. They have arrived, and we are going to be doing some detailed testing. I think that Jimmy said all of the turbos that we got have speed sensors on them. So they have impeller sensors on them. So we can check what the impeller speed is and then use that with, obviously we'll have boost pressure and back pressure and temperature for stuff. So we'll be able to look at them. Not that really all of that stuff is terribly necessary for the kind of market that we're doing. I'm not interested in pro mod stuff or any of that. What I am interested in is junkyard stuff. And so the turbos that we're going to be testing are geared toward that, but with an edge more toward bigger dynamic range and then more efficiency. So that's what we're looking at. So we have 7 or 8 of them that we want to try. And so we're going to be running a bunch of tests on it and try to get as much data logging as we can. I'm going to run the low buck truck camshaft and the truck plus both on a 6-liter, and we're going to be doing some 6-liter stuff. I'm also going to be doing some stuff on the 5.3. We're going to be running turbo sizing, different turbos on the 5.3 as a single, and then we'll see how we kind of want to see what's happening on the engine dyno more. I mean, it'll tell us a little bit about what's going on with boost response, if there's a dramatic difference between some of these. And there's going to be, because the range of the turbos that we're testing, some of them are going to be very responsive and some of them are going to be less so. So we'll be able to see that, but we want to see that out on the road also. But we'll be able to see, hey, look, because we'll also test them against a GT45 and that kind of stuff. So it'll be good. I remember extrude honing ads in the Mustang magazines. I did a lot of stuff with those guys. Those guys are such fantastic people. Can't wait until you get the test. The slide carbs. Yeah, those are ready. I just need to get with Tom as soon as he has. I think he wants to wait till he has production pieces. I remember the AccuFab intake you tested. Yeah, that was neat. That they dug that out of, man, that's been sitting for a long time. Did you run the fuel turbines with this test? No, we didn't. For a 32 Highboy Bonneville car, it has a mechanical flat tappet cam, 34cc. Those heads have a 34cc chamber on them. How did you get it that small? Flat top piston. It had a 2,000 RPM power band. 355 foot-pounds of torque, 450 horsepower at 7,200. Very cool. That's cool, Dave. That's good stuff, man. Your EFI onboard computer is now sentient. It can hear you. It can hear you talk about stuff that you shouldn't be talking about. Did you have extrude hone intakes tested? Yes, we did those, and they work really good. I think they're doing it on Ford intakes. Yeah, they did it on everything back in the day. In fact, we had one of those on all the testing that I did recently with Mark when we were putting the Kenny Bell blower on there, when we were running it on the engine dyno. The tubes were slip fit, curved aluminum pipes of 3 different lengths to use unless we cut them. It was interesting trying to mix and match and get the full runner lengths equal. Stock lower, by the way. Yeah, that sounds like what the one that I did. Did I say the sizing yet for turbos? No, I didn't. You'll need to pair turbo cam injector packages. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. I'm looking at a low dollar turbo kit, kind of. And then we want to do other stuff too, but we want to have turbos that will be, usable for the vast majority of the people that I'm interested in servicing. Like to have one bigger than 78, 75, maybe an 88 or 102. Yeah, 102 stuff doesn't really interest me. At CHI, rub the cores and pull the valve seats down into the chambers. What did that 185 head originally have? It wasn't anywhere near 34 cc's, right? Holly twin oval dominator throttle body. Because you need 2,500 CFM. I had the extrude honed upper and lower stock ones. Yeah, had Kenny Bell on top of the lower immediately after that. Yeah. Yep. It was originally 64, right? Okay, because I thought that you said that was 34. But it'll be cool. It'll be nice to run the turbos, and they should all easily bolt on and stuff. All that should be pretty nice. And they're ones that I've not tried before, so it'll be interesting. we did a lot of math to try to decide. And I mean, there are turbos that are, this one's this much different than this one, this one's this much different, this one's this much different. We're like, eventually you just got to like pick something. And so we did, and so we narrowed it down to some rather than hundreds of ones that we could use. And then I'd rather just have like 2 or 3 that up on the channel that or up on the store excuse me, that we can go, look, if you put this on this thing, it does this, but this one it does this, but this one it does this. After that, just go get like big stuff. The Dominator twin oval is basically a UT Awesome oval, but bigger. Yeah. Kenny Bale has big ovals, and other guys have big ovals for the Ford stuff. Pulling the seats down into the chamber gave me a better short turn and a 34cc chamber. Okay. Did you mill a bunch of it off? Did you weld up the chamber? Still not seeing how you change it by 30 cc's. Got 1 more minute. And we'll end up with XFI. That's like a little ad for them and for Optima batteries. They really should pay for that, I think. Pulling down. Yeah, that's Dave. That's the thing I'm wondering. For me, pulling down is like, but I don't know how you pull it down. I don't know how you do that without welding and stuff and then remachining it. But that's nonetheless, that's awesome. A good 1,000 horsepower turbo setup would be cool. Yeah, these turbos, some of these turbos that we have will go 4-digit stuff. Can you put restrictor plates on the throttle body? On which throttle body? No milling. They rubbed the core so the chamber was lower. Oh, okay. Okay, so they actually cast different heads for you then? The Optima battery's been around the block. It has. It's had. It's not the age; it's the mileage. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all, as always. Awesome night, and I will be back tomorrow. There. We're ending stream. Yeah, I wanted to end the stream.